Greetings, watercolor class. We're going to talk about brushes. There's just an awful lot of brushes available out there on the market, and it can be pretty confusing. This is going to be an informal presentation. I typically sit down with all of my watercolor supplies and take about a class period to walk through brushes and paper, paints, palettes, all the paraphernalia that one needs. But I'm going to break it out. So we're going to just talk about brushes in this presentation. And I have laid out here a couple of these bamboo paintbrush holding devices. I picked those up in China when I taught watercolor for a month at Hunan University of Art, Science, and Technology a few years back. It was a great experience. Off and on during the class, I'll be sharing some things with you about that experience. But as long as we're talking about this little wrap that I have these in, let me grab another device. I am not currently using this for storing brushes, but this is one of these little non-skid pieces you can buy at Walmart to put under, it's drawer liner, or put under carpets so they won't skip and slide. And you can wrap brushes in these. They're extremely inexpensive. The texture of it keeps the brushes from sliding, and so you can wrap them up and put a rubber band around it. It's a very good way to store brushes. It just actually works as well as these bamboo brush holders that I have here. So anyway, that has to do with brushes, so thought I'd share it with you. Well, I've got large brushes, and I've got some really small brushes, a number of detail brushes, fine point, a flat and a fine point detail brush. I have more brushes over here. I have this thing about buying brushes. I'm just fascinated by them. I like to collect them. But in reality, you don't need that many. For this class, here's the bottom line. You will need a 1-inch flat brush. You will need a large round brush. This is a number 12. You will need a medium round brush. This is an 8. The number isn't important. I don't have the sizes memorized. And I'm guessing this is about a 3. I would call it a detail brush. So 3 round brushes, small, medium, and large, and 1 flat brush. That's all you really need. What's more important than the number of brushes is going to be the quality of the brush. You really do want to invest in a decent quality brush. So how can you tell if it's a good quality brush? Well, if it's a name brand brush, that's a good indication. Brushes come in synthetic. This is a synthetic brush, and this is a natural hair brush. A good quality natural hair brush is going to be more versatile and last longer than a synthetic brush. But most of the brushes you're going to find in our supply stores today are going to be synthetic. I guess they're a lot cheaper to produce. I don't know what all the reasons are. Now, if money is no object, order 3 or 4 sable brushes. Sable's a little animal that lives in Siberia, hunted typically in the winter there, brutal winters. Well, you probably aren't going to be buying sable brushes. I visited I forgot the name of the school. It'll come to me later, but a famous art school in New York City. And they had some sable brushes on sale. I was pretty excited, 50% off. And I could have bought a sable brush about the size of this brush. Would have had a better point on it than this one will hold. Half price was $50. It was a $100 brush. I wish I'd bought it. I didn't. I was on a tight budget that day. Now you may find some brushes that are called sable that aren't really sable. It's false advertising. Some will be called sabeline, sable-like, but there are natural hair brushes made out of squirrel hair. That's pretty popular. So let me tell you about this brush. This is my 1-inch flat brush. It looks almost exactly like this 1-inch flat brush, except this one, the one I picked up first, has just a little bit of tarnishing on the ferrule right here. This brush I purchased when I took watercolor class in, I believe it was 1969. So this brush has been around a while, going on 50 years. And it's been my main large brush for dozens and dozens of paintings. And it still holds up, holds a point, holds an edge. Doesn't look like it could hold a point, does it? But you can create a pretty fine line with this. It's a topic for another day. It works actually better than this Grumbacher 1-inch brush. By the way, these are both Aquarelle brushes. Goodbye, a 1-inch Aquarelle brush. Be careful though, because I got a special deal one time on a package of brushes, one Aquarelle 1-inch brush and about a half a dozen medium and round brushes for about 20 bucks. And I thought, wow, that's a good deal. Well, it was a knockoff. I won't say what country probably was marketing it, but it was really not a Grumbacher brush. It would not hold an edge. It just was not the same quality. My giveaway that it wasn't a true Grumbacher brush is this has a beveled edge. Both of these have a beveled edge. That beveled edge gives you a surface that you can actually scrape a wet piece of watercolor paper to get highlighted, variegated highlighted areas after you put a stroke down. And the knockoff brush that was not a true Grumbacher was dull all around this. It was not, it didn't have a sharp edge, and I thought, oh, that doesn't seem right. Well, the quality of the brush itself wasn't good. So I'm just telling you that to tell you that you want to be sure that you're buying from a reputable store when you buy brushes, because you can buy cheap imitations of good brushes. So a 1-inch brush, that brush is still my mainstay brush for doing large flat washes. I have a variety of round brushes here that I pick up, and typically I will have 2 or 3 or 4 round brushes out at any given time. So back to the question about how do you tell if it's a quality brush. Student grade brushes, or even elementary school student grade brushes, typically if you moisten the brush head, let me pick one out here that's medium sized. It's going to gross you out a little bit, but if you're in a store you probably won't want to do this, or if you do this you're not going to want somebody watching you. But you can take the little plastic sleeve off of the end of it and moisten it. Yeah, that's right. Gross, I know. Well, once you moisten the brush, if you hold the end of it and flip it, it's going to bounce back. It's going to have resiliency. If it's a really cheap brush, when you do that and you let go, it's just going to stay bent. Don't buy that brush unless you're using it for something other than serious painting. So anyway, that's a good way to tell if it's a quality brush, whether it is a natural hair brush or a synthetic brush. By the way, the synthetic brushes are going to almost always bounce back better than a natural hair brush. However, a natural hair brush, you're more likely to find a brush. This is a number 4 synthetic brush, and this one holds a good point when I do that. It's really, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this on the video, but that really holds a good point, and it's bouncing back really well. So I can do a lot of painting that will hold its form when it's wet. That's important. It's a good brush. Well, okay, so you're going to need one 1-inch flat brush and 3 sizes of round brushes minimally. There's some other brushes I'm going to talk about for a moment just so you are aware of them. So you don't have to run out and buy them, but I actually have several flat brushes. This is a 1/2 inch flat brush, or a 3/4 inch flat brush, and this is a 1/2 inch. And sometimes I need a little smaller area. Might be doing shingles on a roof or little geometric motifs, and a smaller flat brush is nice to have, but not necessary. And this one, I don't know where I picked this up. It's a Robert Simmons brush, and it has an angled hairs to it, and every once in a while that's been handy to have. And because I have it, I can find a use for it. So one other brush that I'm going to mention that isn't one you're going to probably want to rush out and buy unless you do a lot of line work when you paint. This is called a rigger, a number 3 rigger here. A rigger brush is really nice for a calligraphic line. Really long bristles, much longer bristles than a normal flat brush, nearly twice the length. And the purpose of that is twofold. It will hold quite a bit of moisture, but when you're doing long calligraphic lines, think a weeping willow tree or a power line that's going across your page, fine lines that you need to be able to paint a long line, and the length of the sable bristles help absorb some of the nervousness of your fingers, so you can get a more flowing line than you can get with a shorter brush, which it's gonna show up the little jiggles and jumps of your fingertip. So a rigger brush. Sometimes I'll find a student who's wanting to do a particular type of line work, and I'll recommend that they go out and find a rigger brush, or sometimes I'll loan them mine. I do keep a few really big brushes around if I'm doing a full sheet painting. This is a, what is it? It doesn't have the length on it. It looks like it's about 2.5 inches. Now it's a 2-inch brush. Handy brush to have. I probably only use this, I don't know, half a dozen times. But if I'm doing a full sheet painting, I want to really cover a lot of area with a flat wash in a hurry. It's a handy brush to have. I bought several of these, by the way, at a National Art Ed convention, and they were almost giving them away price at that convention, so I grabbed them. Well, this is the time I would normally ask for questions, so if you have any questions, be sure to shoot me an email or catch me in class, and we'll talk more about brushes. But buy quality. This is one of the most important aspects of the materials you're going to have to paint with. If you buy really poor quality brushes, you're handicapping yourself. It's going to be more difficult to get that brush to do what you want it to do. So invest a little bit of money and get some good quality brushes. So I'll move on and set up to do a video about paper, which is the next really important element that you'll need to consider. So have a good day.